Hello, guys, and we have your daily dose of crypto news. And headline Thanksgiving crypto news: Gary Gensler was skewered by a mutant frustrated turkey wanting a Bitcoin ETF. Actually, no, I'm kidding. Let's get to the real news. That would have been exciting, though. So, a presidential candidate actually wants to back the US dollar with Bitcoin. It's Vivek Ramsey. I have no idea how the hell he's going to do this. It doesn't really make any sense to me, but let's figure out how this guy plans to back the US dollar with Bitcoin. Backing Bitcoin with a US dollar, a certain amount of US dollars, that might make more sense, even though that really doesn't make any sense too, because it is a market valued coin. So, this is a groundbreaking move, kind of a loco move too. Presidential candidate Vivek Ramsey has unveiled a crypto policy framework and signaling his intention to peg the US dollar to Bitcoin within a basket of commodities. That's a lot of words for something that doesn't make a lot of sense. How do you peg the US dollar to Bitcoin? Because the problem with that is like Bitcoin is volatile itself, so you can't really peg it. Even if you bought all the Bitcoin in existence, it cannot thwart our money supply. If you wanted to do that, Bitcoin would have to be hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And I don't know how Vivek Ramsey can get the entire financial community to go along with this because I don't think he can. But let's look at this. He praised Bitcoin as a critical alternative to the US dollar. Now, I don't think the other Republican candidates, including Donald Trump, is going to be with this because Donald Trump is all about the US dollar, as is every other presidential candidate. Ramsey aims to embrace the digital asset if elected, with the goal of holding the Federal Reserve System accountable. Speaking with the Street Crypto's Natalie Bruno, Ramsey highlighted the importance of Bitcoin in preventing manipulation of the US dollar. This is from bravenewcoin.com, but I'm just providing my comment on it. He thinks that the existence of Bitcoin holds a dollar's feet to the fire. Now, I think a couple of people have actually seen Bitcoin as a hedge to the dollar, and that's why it's not going with the economy. As the inflation's actually risen up, some people have turned to Bitcoin, and as BlackRock calls it, a flight to quality, which is something very, very telling for Bitcoin. So he officially introduced his crypto policy framework on November 16th at the North American Blockchain Summit in Fort Worth, Texas. Calls it the three freedoms of crypto. He advocates a 75% reduction in the federal workforce. I have no idea what that actually says about like crypto, including the SEC. So he wants to eliminate the SEC, which I think some of you can get behind, emphasizing the deregulation of financial investment rules as a top priority. I think that would trigger a lot of scams, though. And I think a lot of people, especially in the traditional market, would end up losing a lot of money or falling towards scams. This move would not only impact roles overseeing crypto, but also limit the agency's ability to regulate financial markets more broadly. I would be fine if they just took away the SEC's ability to regulate crypto. There's another bill in Congress that says the SEC cannot use funding to regulate crypto. I'd be much more in favor of that plan and instead of just getting rid of the SEC and getting rid of all these financial regulations because there's just going to be so many scams. This is like a scam artist's dream and a fat cat's dream as well. So I'm not really for this, but saying the SEC cannot use its funds to persecute or regulate crypto, I'm all for that too. I think Tom Emmer has something like that, and I'm more in for that. So among the key points of the three freedoms of crypto is a stance that developers of smart contract code should not be held liable for the actions of its users. Yeah, but you still need to hold them accountable for their crappy code because, crappy code can easily be exploited. And yes, the users are the one exploiting them, but they're the ones writing crappy code. There's so many loopholes in that there needs to be some restrictions. Like if you write a bunch of holes in your code, you should be held sort of accountable because you're the one that made a bunch of crappy made a bunch of holes in your code. It's just if you make a crappy car, you're not responsible for the guy that's driving it drunk. No, but your car could just the brakes could just die or something, and you would be responsible. So there's a lot of stuff that you're basically writing code that can be exploited much more easily. So I think that holds some responsibility. So I think smart contract writers should have some culpability so they actually write good smart contracts because we know there's a lot of inside jobs in crypto where the smart contract writers are probably splitting money with the hackers themselves, and it's very, very hard to actually catch that. So that I do think there needs to be some kind of penalty. I do like some of Ramsey's thoughts, but I do think he's being very, very lenient. In his speech, he specifically addressed sanctions against crypto mixer Tornado Cash, arguing that going after code developers violates the First Amendment. The Tornado Cash thing, I do agree with him on. I don't think they should prosecute Tornado Cash. Of course, he wants regulatory clarity, but he just wants no regulations at all, which is very different from regulatory clarity. I don't think I can quite get behind that. I'm much more happy with just Tom Emmer's version. Providing new cryptocurrencies with a safe harbor exemptions from securities laws for a specific period after launch. He also pledges to prevent federal agencies from creating rules limiting the use of self-hosted wallets. That is key. Self-hosted wallets and validators should not be required to report to the federal government. I 100% agree with that. So some good stuff, some crazy stuff, and some bad stuff as well. Overall, like I said, I favor Tom Emmer over Ramsey. But I think Ramsey is really running to be Donald Trump's VP. And he actually would be okay with Trump's VP because Trump would not let him actually get rid of the US dollar because Trump really, really likes the US dollar, like most other presidential candidates. So I don't really know about this plan to back US dollar with Bitcoin. Sounds insane, sounds crazy, but maybe he's just trying to win over some crypto proponents. So that is the news of Vivek Ramsey trying to back the US dollar with crypto, which once again to me doesn't really make a lot of sense. But it sounds good on paper, and it could be a good campaign to actually run on. In other news, the mighty Do Kwon might actually walk free because in related news today, one of his co-partners actually got released in Korea. So there was information that Do Kwon's partner, Daniel Shen, who was tried in South Korea, was released. Do's extradition to South Korea may not have negative consequences. So Shin was released unless Shin was paid to tattle on him. Kwon might actually be released for free. And the thing is, like, he might not be prosecuted in the United States because the SEC can't actually find any real evidence against him. Now, he's been held in Serbia, Montenegro for like a year and a half, and his lawyer is suing to get his case dismissed. The SEC wants a quick summary judgment, but the SEC has failed to present any real evidence against Do Kwon. So the thing is, like, you can't really hold him there forever unless you get the evidence, and I don't think the SEC really has any evidence to really pin that he did anything illegal in the United States. They're obviously charging him for selling unregistered securities, but they can't really prove that he actually sold an unregistered security, so they're kind of like up a creek without a paddle at this point, and I think this could be a devastating blow to the SEC if they end up losing this case, because if you can't win against Do Kwon and Terra Luna, you really can't win against anyone. So there we have Do Kwon and Terra Luna. The SEC has delayed both the Bitcoin and the Ethereum ETF, at least some of them. I think they did one yesterday, and they probably delayed more today. So essentially, the SEC has requested an extension of its decision to approve or reject spot Bitcoin and spot Ethereum ETFs. Presently, candidates for both ETFs are on standby as they wait a final decision in 2024. I think they cannot get past a final decision of January, so they're going to have to decide one sooner or later. So the regulator filed for an extension on November 15th, yesterday. And of course, this is kind of like Gary Gensler's own personal vendetta against Bitcoin. There's no reason you need this much time to approve a Bitcoin ETF, especially since a futures ETF has already been approved. And futures ETFs and spot ETFs are the same thing 99.9% of the time. But the commission says the commission finds it appropriate to designate a longer period within which to take action on the proposed rule change so that it is sufficient time to consider the proposed rule change and issues rise therewithin. Presently, the SEC announced a postponement of Grayscale's Ethereum futures ETF application with the asset management company submitted early in September, but they already have a futures ETF out there for Ethereum, so I don't know if Grayscale is going to be that much big of a consequence. The Regulatory Commission has also delayed Hashdex's application to convert its Bitcoin futures ETF to a spot fund. So the thing is, like, they're trying to delay everything. They're basically just trying to buy themselves more time because they really, for some reason, don't want a spot ETF. I don't know how much banking corruption or something there is to it. There is dissent within the SEC, obviously with Hester Pierce. And I think Gary Gensler is losing control. I do not think he will be able to delay it past January. There's a growing demand for it too, and BlackRock and the Cabal actually want a Bitcoin ETF now. And that's obviously not very good for Gary Gensler because if he works for the Cabal, he cannot avoid getting through a Bitcoin ETF. Essentially, like, for very long. So he's going to have to give up. I don't know if his masters at Goldman Sachs or whatever are going to be happy with that, but he will not be able to deny it. If he actually denies it in January, I feel like he's going to have so many lawsuits up his ass that realistically, like, he's going to be the one paying the price. And Congress is definitely turning against him. I think if he actually denies it, there's going to be a pretty big push, but maybe bipartisan push to oust him out of Congress. Tom Emmer is definitely going to do that. Patrick McHenry is going to support that. But there are Democratic members of the House of Representatives that are very pro-Bitcoin that are going to be pissed off at him as well. Obviously, Elizabeth Warren and Brad Sherman will support Gary Gensler, but I don't think just their support is actually going to be enough to get Gary Gensler off the hot seat. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.